Cobweb, 2023, is a gripping exploration of terror that stands out as one of the year's most fascinating cinematic experiences. Directed by Samuel Baudin, the film deftly intertwines psychological tension and supernatural elements, creating an atmosphere that is both haunting and thought-provoking. Unlike traditional horror movies that rely heavily on jump scares, Cobweb builds its unease through layers of suspense and emotional depth. This approach not only elevates its storytelling, but also immerses the audience in the harrowing journey of its protagonist, Peter. This film is not just about what lurks in the shadows. It's about the shadows within, making it a unique entry into the genre. The story centers on Peter, a lonely and sensitive boy who hears mysterious knocks on his bedroom wall at night. Initially dismissed by his overly strict parents, Peter begins to uncover dark secrets hidden within the confines of his seemingly ordinary home. The film's narrative structure is masterful, blending moments of quiet tension with bursts of horror that leave the viewer on edge. It's not just the events themselves that are terrifying, but the sense of inevitability that builds as the truth unfolds. The performances in Cobweb are nothing short of exceptional. Woody Norman, as Peter, delivers a nuanced portrayal of a child torn between fear and curiosity. His vulnerability feels raw and authentic, drawing the audience into his perspective. Lizzie Kaplan and Anthony Starr, as Peter's parents, bring a chilling duality to their roles. Their characters embody both love and control, making them all the more disturbing as the story progresses. Kaplan's ability to oscillate between maternal warmth and eerie detachment is particularly noteworthy, while Starr's restrained menace lingers long after his scenes. Visually, Cobweb is a masterpiece. The cinematography amplifies the oppressive atmosphere, with dimly lit hallways and claustrophobic framing that mirrors Peter's growing sense of entrapment. The use of color is another standout feature. The film contrasts warm daytime hues with cold, muted tones at night, creating a visual representation of the duality in Peter's world. This deliberate choice makes each scene feel layered with meaning, enhancing the overall experience. At its core, Cobweb is not just about supernatural fear, but also about the horrors of familial dysfunction. The film delves into themes of isolation, control, and the consequences of buried secrets. What makes the film truly terrifying is not the monsters in the walls, but the monsters created by human actions and inaction. The idea of trust being betrayed by those closest to you resonates deeply, adding emotional weight to the terror. One of Cobweb's strengths lies in its ambiguity. Is the danger Peter faces supernatural, or is it a projection of his trauma and imagination? This question lingers throughout the film, creating a psychological tension that is both captivating and unsettling. By refusing to provide clear answers, Cobweb challenges its audience to grapple with the unknown. This approach not only heightens the terror, but also gives the story a profound sense of depth. Samuel Baudin's direction is a standout element of Cobweb. With a keen eye for detail and a deep understanding of pacing, he crafts a film that feels both intimate and grand. His decision to focus on Peter's perspective was a brilliant move. It allows the audience to experience the terror as a child would, raw, unfiltered, and deeply personal. Baudin's ability to balance the film's supernatural and psychological elements is a testament to his talent, marking him as a director to watch in the horror genre. The conclusion of Cobweb is deliberately ambiguous, leaving many questions unanswered. This choice may frustrate some viewers, but it is undeniably effective in keeping the story alive in the audience's minds. The real horror is not what is shown, but what is left to the imagination, a hallmark of truly impactful storytelling. As a psychological horror film, Cobweb breaks new ground by combining emotional depth with traditional scares. It's a story that stays with you, not just because of its terrifying moments, but because of its exploration of human fragility and resilience. In the end, Cobweb is more than a film. It's an experience. It whispers in the darkness of your mind, refusing to be forgotten. One of the most compelling aspects of Cobweb is its multifaceted characters. They are not mere archetypes, but deeply flawed individuals, each shaped by their own traumas and secrets. Peter is portrayed as more than just a scared child. He is curious, resourceful, and empathetic. His journey is not only about surviving the horrors around him, but also about discovering his own strength. This makes him a relatable and memorable protagonist. The parents, played masterfully by Lizzie Kaplan and Anthony Starr, are equally complex. Their actions are horrifying, but the film hints at a deeper backstory, suggesting they are as much victims of their own circumstances as they are perpetrators of Peter's suffering. The sound design of Cobweb is instrumental in creating its unsettling atmosphere. From the eerie knocks on the wall to the faint whispers in the distance, every sound is meticulously crafted to heighten the tension. Silence is used as a weapon, making the moments of noise all the more impactful. This dynamic keeps the audience on edge, constantly anticipating the next scare. Moreover, the sound serves as a narrative device, giving a voice to the unseen forces in the story. The way it interacts with the visuals creates a sensory experience that is as immersive as it is terrifying. Cobweb is rich in symbolism, with its central metaphor of the web representing the entrapment and interconnectedness of its characters. Peter's discovery of the hidden truths within his home mirrors his emotional awakening and the unraveling of his innocence. The house itself is a character, embodying the weight of secrecy and repression. Its decaying walls and dark corners are physical manifestations of the rot within the family. Every frame of the film is layered with meaning, inviting the audience to dig deeper into its thematic depths beyond its supernatural elements. Cobweb is a commentary on fear, both as a tool of control and as a force that shapes our actions. The parents' strictness is rooted in their own fears, which they project onto Peter in destructive ways. The film asks an important question: how much of our fear is real, and how much is created by our perceptions? This philosophical layer adds a richness to the narrative that sets it apart from typical horror fare. Visually, Cobweb is stunning in its execution. The film employs a muted color palette that reflects the oppressive atmosphere of Peter's world. Shadows are used extensively, not just as a visual element, but as a thematic one, representing the unseen and the unknown. The use of perspective is another standout feature. Many scenes are shot from Peter's point of view, emphasizing his vulnerability and limited understanding of the world around him. This creates an intimate connection between the audience and the protagonist, making his fears feel immediate and real. At its heart, Cobweb is as much a psychological thriller as it is a horror film. It delves into the psyche of its characters, exploring how trauma and isolation can distort reality. Peter's internal struggle is as compelling as the external threats he faces. His journey is one of self-discovery, as he learns to distinguish between what is real and what is imagined. This duality is the film's greatest strength, blurring the line between the supernatural and the psychological. One of the most intriguing aspects of Cobweb is how it engages the audience. The film doesn't spoon-feed answers, but instead leaves room for interpretation. This ambiguity invites viewers to become active participants in the story, piecing together clues and forming their own conclusions. This interactivity is rare in modern horror, making Cobweb a truly unique viewing experience. The ending of Cobweb is both chilling and thought-provoking. It leaves lingering questions that challenge the audience to reflect on what they've just witnessed. This open-ended conclusion ensures that the film stays with you long after the credits roll. It's not just a resolution, but a beginning of a new set of questions, enhancing its long-lasting impact. Cobweb is a film that defies expectations, blending traditional horror elements with psychological depth and emotional resonance. Its ability to terrify while also making profound statements about family, trauma, and fear cements its place as one of the standout films of 2023. It's a masterclass in horror that demands to be seen, felt, and discussed, an unforgettable whisper that echoes in the minds of its viewers. While Cobweb fits squarely within the horror genre, it challenges many of the typical conventions that have dominated horror films for years. It avoids the reliance on overused tropes such as jump scares or excessive gore. Instead, the film takes a more cerebral approach to terror, focusing on the emotional and psychological turmoil of its characters. The film is a masterful example of how horror can be used as a tool for deeper thematic exploration, turning it into something more than just a simply frightening experience. It shows that horror can be both intellectually stimulating and emotionally impactful, without needing to sacrifice atmosphere or suspense. By taking risks with its narrative and stylistic choices, Cobweb elevates the genre to a new level, proving that horror can still innovate in an era where many films seem to repeat the same formulas. The theme of family is central to Cobweb, with the film's primary horror stemming not just from the supernatural occurrences, but from the toxic family dynamics Peter finds himself trapped in. His parents, who should be the people who protect him, are instead sources of fear and manipulation. The dynamic between Peter and his parents is complex and multifaceted, creating a sense of tension that is far more intense than any outside threat. The horror that Peter faces in the home is not only external, but also internal, as his sense of security and trust in those around him is completely shattered. Cobweb uses the family structure to highlight the emotional and psychological damage caused by neglect, repression, and control. The film doesn't just show us a child's fear, it shows the fear that arises from being trapped in a home where love is suffocating and trust is non-existent. Though Cobweb is a fresh and original take on the horror genre, it also pays homage to the greats that came before it. The film draws inspiration from the psychological horror of filmmakers like Stanley Kubrick, particularly in the way it uses space and perspective to heighten tension. The house itself feels reminiscent of the hedge maze in The Shining, where the spaces seem to close in on you. This use of the environment as a tool of terror is a hallmark of some of the most influential horror films in history, and Cobweb successfully taps into that legacy. In addition, the film's slower, more deliberate pacing reflects the style of horror films from the 70s and 80s, where building atmosphere and character tension were just as important as the scares themselves. By blending these classic elements with a modern sensibility, Cobweb manages to feel both timeless and innovative. One of the most effective techniques used in Cobweb is its strategic use of silence. In many horror films, sound is an essential element in building suspense, but in Cobweb, silence is equally impactful. The film understands that the lack of sound can be just as terrifying as any loud noise or jump scene. These quiet moments heighten the tension, allowing the viewer to feel the oppressive silence that Peter experiences in his home. The absence of sound during key scenes amplifies the sense of isolation and vulnerability that Peter feels, making every creak in the floorboards and knock on the wall all the more disturbing. The film demonstrates that true horror often lies not in what we hear, but in what we don't. At its core, Cobweb is not just about external monsters, but about the monsters inside us, fear, guilt, and the weight of unspoken truths. Peter's emotional journey is as crucial to the story as the supernatural elements, and his internal struggles mirror the external ones. The film asks us to confront what we keep buried inside and how our past can haunt us in unexpected ways. The fear of the unknown is a powerful motivator, but the fear of confronting our own darkest truths is perhaps even more terrifying. Cobweb explores how family trauma and emotional repression can shape our perceptions of reality, creating an environment where the line between the real and the imagined becomes increasingly blurred. Peter's journey toward self-realization is a painful one, but it is also a path to freedom from the chains of his past. Cobweb is a film rich with visual metaphors that speak to its deeper themes. The central metaphor of the web is a recurring motif that symbolizes the entrapment of the characters, particularly Peter. The web represents not just the physical danger that Peter faces, but also the emotional and psychological traps set by his family and his own mind. The constant presence of the web in the film speaks to the idea of inescapable fate and the complexity of human connection. The way Peter's world becomes more entangled as the film progresses mirrors his own growing understanding of the dark forces at play within his home. The house, too, acts as a metaphor for Peter's mind, decaying, filled with hidden truths and slowly coming apart at the seams. The web, the house, and the supernatural elements all work together to create a visual language that enhances the emotional depth of the film. In an era where mental health and family dynamics are increasingly being discussed, Cobweb holds a mirror up to these conversations. The film explores how deeply rooted emotional issues can be passed down through generations, impacting not only the individuals who experience them, but also those who are left to deal with the consequences. In this way, Cobweb becomes more than just a horror film. It's a commentary on the intergenerational trauma that many families struggle to overcome. The film's exploration of fear, control, and isolation resonates on a personal level for many viewers, making it a compelling work that taps into the collective consciousness of modern society. While Cobweb incorporates supernatural elements, it does so in a way that feels natural to the story. The supernatural acts as both a literal threat and a metaphor for the psychological and emotional forces at work in Peter's life. The question of whether the supernatural events are real or a product of Peter's mind is one of the film's most powerful themes. This ambiguity leaves room for interpretation and makes the film all the more compelling. It also emphasizes the psychological horror at the heart of the story, the fear of losing touch with reality, of being trapped in a world that is both real and imagined. The score of Cobweb, composed by Drum and Lace, is a haunting and integral part of the film's atmosphere. The music is both subtle and intense, creating a sense of unease that lingers throughout the film. The score acts as a character in itself, driving the emotional tension and creating a soundtrack for the fears and emotions explored in the film. The subtle use of low frequencies and eerie melodies amplifies the psychological horror, creating an immersive experience for the audience. Cobweb is a film that defies expectations, offering more than just a traditional horror experience. It is a deeply psychological journey that examines the effects of family trauma, the nature of fear, and the complexity of the human psyche. Through its masterful direction, complex characters, and immersive atmosphere, the film crafts a story that is both terrifying and thought-provoking. This is a film that challenges the horror genre, raising the bar for what can be achieved in both cinematic territory and thematic depth. With its unsettling atmosphere, nuanced performances, and a deeply personal narrative, Cobweb has proven itself as a standout work that will continue to resonate long after the credits roll. In conclusion, Cobweb is a modern masterpiece of psychological horror. It blends the supernatural with the emotional, creating a gripping, thought-provoking experience. This is not a film to be merely watched. It's one to be felt, experienced, and reflected upon. The horror lies not only in the monsters, but in the fragile minds of those who are trapped by them. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into Cobweb. This analysis has explored the intricate layers of the film, from its haunting visuals to its complex characters and themes. Cobweb is a film that deserves to be seen and discussed, and it will undoubtedly be remembered as a standout in the horror genre for years to come. Alright folks, we've reached the end of our recap of Cobweb 2023. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the mysteries, the scares, and the psychological layers that make this film so unique. If you like this content, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss one of our upcoming videos. What movie would you like to see a recap of next? Drop your suggestions in the comments. I love hearing what you all are thinking. And of course, share this video with your friends who are also fans of a good horror flick. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next recap. Catch you later.